guess we're back in session. So we're proceeding to the action items. The first action item is approve the fiscal year 20 district budget.
I'll make a motion to approve the fiscal year 20 budget.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the fiscal year 20 budget. I guess I'm going to move it back.
Kim said she'd take it.
Kim's
I
taking it.
got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, approve the negotiated agreement and salary schedule.
Do you want to go over any of that, Steve?
I can. So the salary schedule increase was 3.5%. The medical benefit amount was $920. Remember, we had I think it was 6.5% increase to insurance this year. And then in the master agreement, it was unchanged except for the certified sick leave bank, and we used the same language as the classified sick leave bank. And the master agreement is on the following pages.
And the personal leave and the sick leave, all the same,
Unchanged.
unchanged.
Yeah, nothing was changed. The only thing we changed is on the salary schedule. Or was it that? The spring coaches don't have the same as the fall.
Oh, yeah, right. You can see on that salary schedule on page 15, the minimum for 1920 is $38,500.
Other than that, I think everything else is the same. Nothing else has changed. So I'll make a motion to approve the 2019-20 negotiated agreement.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the 2019-2020 negotiated agreement and salary schedule. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Approve the administrative contract. I guess somebody else gets to make the motion, right? And what did we decide on? We decided on
3.5 and 2.5.
3.5 on Dory's and 2.5 on Steve. And I'll second it. All-
No motion.
Steve.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, approve amending policy 7235, physical accountability and IDEA Part D.
Okay, so I want to say that a lot of these are updates that we received from ISBA. So this is an update to a policy to outline who may approve IDEA Part B expenditures and includes necessary language for time and effort reporting. It also provides a link to the State Department of Education's Special Education Funding template. This is a required policy. So in the discussion, I'm basically just copying and pasting what ISBA sends with these updates. The 7,000 are all mostly financial policies. A little bit dry.
I make a motion to approve amending policy 7235.
Been moved and seconded that we approve of policy, amending policy 7235. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Policy 7260.
In this one, we added language indicating the purpose and governance of student activity funds. We put the accounts of this fund are generally operated for the benefit of students, governed by school policy. This is on the first page of it. Supervised by school district staff members and accountable to the Board of Trustees.
I move we approve amending policy 7260.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve amending policy 7260. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Policy 7270, property records.
This amendment clarifies the identification of the title holder on equipment and computing devices and is a required policy. This was an update from ISBA.
I'll make the motion for the amendment of policy 7270.
Been moved and seconded that we approve policy 7270. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carried. Approve amending policy 7320, allowable uses for grant funds.
And this is an update to an existing policy we already had about the allowable uses for grant funds. It includes language required under the Uniform Guidance on Federal Funds and adds a new section to provide guidance for determining whether a cost is allowable under these funds, and this is a required policy.
Make a motion to approve amendment policy 7320.
Been moved and seconded that we approve amending policy 7320. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Approve amending policy $7,400 purchasing.
They didn't give me a lot of information on this update. I should have brought the other copy of it, but it said these are updates or additions to the procurement standards. This is an update from ISBA of a policy we already had adopted.
I'll make a motion for the approving the amendment of policy 7400.
Been moved and seconded that we approve amending policy 7400 purchasing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Approve amending policy 7400P procurement under a federal award.
So this is the procedure, or the procedure that goes along with the previous policy. It got an update as well. So it's an update for the procurement standards and breaks out procedures and forms, specifically for procurement under federal grants.
Make a motion to approve policy 7400.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded we approve policy 7400P. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carried. Down to 7430, travel allowances and expenses.
So this is one we talked about last time. We looked at what the state rates are right now. This is amendment related to employee travel. In this amendment, we increased daily per diem to $45 per day and mileage to 50 cents per mile, which is, I want to say it's either close or right at the state rate. I can't remember exactly. Also included in this amendment is reimbursement for public transportation. We talked about that at the end, Shelby, when required for official district business.
Make a motion to approve 7430.
It's been moved and seconded we approve amending policy 7430. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Amending policy 7440, district credit cards.
Yeah, so this one, we just had to set the limits for the credit cards, for both the district credit card and also the aggregate limit, and we decided on 20,000 and 40,000.
the amendment in 7440.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve amending policy 7440. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Amending policy 7450, federal cash management.
In this policy update, ISBA just simplified the policy and took out redundant language. So the policy isn't really that different in what it's doing, it's just less redundant.
I'll make a motion to approve amending policy 7450.
Second.
Been moved and seconded we approve amending policy 7450. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carried. Action item M, approve doors and door frame purchase.
One of the summer projects at Julia.
867278.
I'll make a motion to approve the door and door frames purchase.
Been moved and seconded we approve the doors and door frame purchase. For both JHS and KHS, I guess. Most of these are for JHS.
Yeah, most of them are for Julietta, yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, approve purchase of 2 interactive panels.
So the quote there for 4746 is for one panel. The agenda item is for 2 panels. So one of them would be for the 21st Century Program. They had money left over in their budget, almost. They are asking for the district to pay for $70 for them to purchase one of these for the program. And then the other one would be for the 6th grade. 6th grade?
Does that mean every class has one more?
Nope, we're getting close though.
I move we approve the 2 interactive panels, KES.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded we approve purchase of 2 interactive panels. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Last action item is approve hiring Hayden and Ross, PLC, for a period of either 1 or 3 years for the district audit services.
So to have is the price the same on every year, or is it,
Oh, it's different. Let's see if I can find it here.
is it in our sheet here?
It's in the letter. So Jen gave Kim 2 letters today.
Yeah.
It's 10.
The first one is a 1-year agreement. The second one's a 3-year agreement, and the prices are,
So 1-year agreement is $10,250, and the 3-year agreement, I think the first year was $10,000.
Yeah, it goes up 500 a
And it
year.
was 500 more, and then it was 11,000.
Kim, what are your thoughts? You're the one that's looked at the most.
I think we should get it to your.
So evidently she must think it's gonna get tougher working for you or something.
Probably, just tired of talking to you.
And just out of curiosity, how is this in line with what other, districts pay, or, it seems like a lot to me, but I don't know if it's just, am I?
There's not very many people that do it
For the districts.
for school.
Who else do they do?
They do quite a few of the districts around here. She goes to Troy, do you know that? And she said Ely or somewhere. Just 2 schools she mentioned today.
Okay.
She's like told me to talk to Teresa and Troy when I have questions, because she thinks she's very knowledgeable. She works with her.
No, I wouldn't change unless they were related.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, because,
We've had it for a long time.
And I don't think we want to move right away, especially with me being new at this. I already kind of know her, it's kind of nice just to stick with what we already have for the moment.
They always do a good job. Usually we had issues, they seem to be there.
so I guess the question is whether you want to go with 1 year or 3 years.
I'd say probably go with 3, because I'm guessing this might just increase every year. Obviously.
Good trees about it, yeah.
Yeah.
3 years, you do a year at a time. I think 3 years is good.
And I think it's good to go with your recommendation. I mean, you're the one who came with it, so. I'll make a motion that we accept 3 years.
I'll second it.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve hiring Hayden and Ross PLLC for a period of 3 years for the district audit services. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Unanimously. We'll get that signed and return to you. Okay, policy items, review the 800 series policies.
I got a question real quick before we start. When we did our field tour, we're looking at the football field and the poles. Does the school district own all those poles, or does it just own all those poles?
I don't know.
I think we own it, but I don't know for sure.
But it just maintains the lights and stuff most of the time, don't they?
Well, lately they've been helping us, you know.
Matt's been doing it kind of on his own.
He just uses the equipment that.
Well, I know Joe had said something about it's been quite a while since any of the poles were tested.
Yeah, we're getting a couple new poles this summer is what the plan is actually.
So-
Did we talk about that?
No, but I was gonna try to get those poles tested.
Yeah,
I don't know if they're gonna let me do it yet or not, but apparently.
okay. Yeah. Matt and Joe have been talking about changing out a couple of those this summer possibly.
Okay, I'll get with Matt and find out which ones. Because that might make a little difference too. If there's a couple we don't have to test. I think it's not a big deal, it's like $60, $80 a pole or something to test them, but
Okay.
I'll try to get it done while we're getting through around here.
If they fail, I can use the fence post.
Okay, you ready for this? We're almost done. In the 9,000s, there's not very many of them. Quite a few 8,000s though.
Well, I thought you were touching math or something.
We're just telling you.
I considered
I-
it. I see the finish line. I
The
want to push it.
negotiating team getting screwed on this deal with the policy committee here too.
I'll agree with you.
Hey, we talked about headlights for a lot of meetings before.
Headlines. Okay, 8,000 are, those are the non-instructional operations policies. The first one is goals. Starts out just like all the other series do. No changes on this one. All assets of district operations, including non-instructional support services, shall be carefully managed in order to obtain maximum efficiency and economy. So that's really the kind of the overarching goal of this set. 8100, this is a policy for transportation requirements, and this is requirements related to safety and a lot of different things. Homeless children, foster children, etc. No changes required on this one. A lot of these follow Idaho code. 8105 is policy for busing to extracurricular activities. There's no changes to make on this one. One of the things that it is noted in this policy is that district employees shall not use a personal vehicle to transport students for extracurricular activities. Once in a while that comes up. So we avoid that. 8105 is a form that goes along with 8105 that we could use for parents as far as a liability waiver. We haven't used this in the past, but it is available if we want to use it now. 8110 is a policy on safety busing. This is not something that's come up in my time in the district. Just to kind of give you an idea of what this is, safety busing is the transportation of a student who lives less than 1.5 miles from school when in the judgment of the Board of Trustees, student warrants such action. or the age and health and safety of the student warrants such action. We haven't had to safety bus. And I'll see that.
I think we did before when we had somebody living just over the little pothouse there in Julia.
Did it?
Yeah, I think that was a safety bus, so she could go across the bridge there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah. No changes on that one. 8115 is policy for driving limits related to passenger vehicles, so things like hours driving, etc. No changes on this one. This one is no different than what we've had in the past, and this one, follows the transportation guidelines that the State Department puts out each year. 8120 is policy related to different aspects of transportation, routes, safety, pupil and parent responsibility, etc. No changes recommended on this one. 8130 is policy related to transportation of students with disabilities. This policy just simply complies with IDEA, so no changes. That's pretty much just law that we're following. We don't have a lot of choices there anyway. 8140 is policy related to student conduct and discipline on the bus. This policy also offers guidance for student discipline related to special education students. This comes up once in a while. This last year was a pretty good year with this, but every once in a while something like this comes up. No changes recommended here. 8150 is policy for unauthorized school bus entry. A person shall be guilty of a misdemeanor if that person enters a school bus with the intent to commit a crime, enters the bus and disrupts or interferes with the driver, enters the bus and refuses to disembark after being ordered to do so. No changes on this one. 8170 is policy for operating district-owned vehicles by employees. These are rules and regulations, and also very general tax implications as well. No changes recommended on this one. 8170P is the procedure for the previous policy. This is has more specific information for operating district vehicles as far as responsibilities and so forth for that district employee. No changes on that one. 8180 is policy for bus driver training and responsibility. This policy also includes qualifications for bus drivers, things like being over the age of 18. That question comes up quite a bit. Be a good moral character, not be addicted to intoxicants or narcotics, etc. No changes on that one. 8185 is policy for bus drivers and wireless communication and operating buses. Essentially, no wireless communication is allowed unless very unusual circumstances. No changes recommended there. 8190 is policy for busing emergencies. This is emergency procedures. Essentially, emergency procedures must be located on the bus. No changes on this one. 8195 is policy for district vehicle idling. Essentially, unnecessary bus or district vehicle idling emits pollutants, waste fuel, and waste financial resources, and so there's limits on idling. No changes. 8200 is policy that promotes, I'll just read this a little bit here for you. The Kendrick Joint School District promotes healthy schools by supporting wellness, good nutrition, and regular physical activity as a part of the total learning environment. So this policy promotes wellness, wellness standards, and also participation requirements. We do have to amend it's like just on the second page, under number 4. It asks us, the district shall also take measures to promote nutrition and physical activity engage in nutrition education, etc. For this purpose, the district may, and recognize that it does say may, provide blank minutes of PE per week to elementary students and blank minutes per week to middle school students. This is really just guidance for us. Right now, middle school students get, well, about 250 minutes per week. Elementary students, what's a ballpark for elementary students per week?
Oh, 60.
Per week. Okay. So that's about what we're getting right now, 60 and 250. I'll keep it about that. Okay. Ultimately, this is going to be a guide. I guess, it's not set in stone. But. And then number 9 is offer at least blank after-school physical activity programs. I would say the minimum would be at least one per season. We're going to offer more, but maybe 3. Thoughts? Are we good with that? Okay. We'll offer more than that. 8210 is policy mandating a district nutrition committee and how that committee is made up. An amendment is needed. Following initial development, this is the second paragraph on the first page for policy 8210. Following initial development, the committee will meet a minimum of blank times annually for continued assessment. When we've had policies like this in the past, which we have, we've always had one meeting annually put in there. Okay, no other changes on that one. 8220 is policy for food services, including rules related to donations, community involvement, and professional development for staff. No changes on this policy. 8230, nutrition standards. This is policy on nutrition standards for lunch and the breakfast program. Essentially, the district shall provide school meals which meet or exceed the nutritional standards required by the USDA program regulations of the National School Lunch Program and the National School Breakfast Program. So Charlotte puts a lot of work into making sure that we meet those guidelines. No changes on this one.
They changed the guidelines.
What's that?
They changed the federal guidelines.
Yeah, Charlotte is, she's let me know. Yep. There's a ton of training that they have to do for these. 8235 is policy related to promoting drinking water and rules for water bottles. No changes on this one. Essentially, we promote water. And we're getting, at the elementary, there was a grant. And we already talked about this, I can't remember. We got some filling stations from a grant for the elementary. So we're working on the high school next. 8240 is policy on school meals. This is more policy related to the school nutrition program, specifically the lunchroom environment. Essentially what this policy is doing is ensuring that we're creating an environment where we're promoting health in the lunchroom. 8245 is policy for unpaid school meal charges. There's a couple of amendments needed here. Now I got to figure out what they were again. Okay, the second paragraph is unpaid meal charges. When a student's school meal account funds are exhausted, a student paying the full or reduced price for meals may charge no more than blank meals or a certain dollar amount. I'd recommend 3 meals year limit in policy rather than a dollar amount. Otherwise, if we do a dollar amount, it might have to change every year. Are we good with 3 meals? Okay. right below that, students who have charged the maximum amount allowed will not or will be allowed to charge further meals until the negative account balance has been paid in full. However, such student will be allowed to purchase a meal if the student pays for the meal when it's received. So it's asking, are we going to allow students to, after they've charged the maximum amount of meals, be able to charge further meals unless their account's been paid in full? Any thoughts on that? What do you think, Amy?
What do you do now?
If we have a negative balance, Charlotte still gives them food. It's a Lunchable and it's a milk or it's water. So we still have a policy where we're still giving them food. It's just not a hot meal. So it's never like they're declining or turned away from food. This is kind of loosely followed because we let them charge to a point. But we're on the parents about the charges. They all know where their bills are at, especially with My School Bucks now. They can log on and see if they're negative.
I think if we say our policy is to not let them to continue to charge, at least that's something we can point to if we
Right now we
reach a
say
limit.
we're a no charge policy. I believe we said that.
Yeah.
No charges.
Okay. Let's see, down below, there's two options there that we have to select, option 1 and option 2. Option 1 is students who have charged the maximum amount and cannot pay out of pocket for a meal will not be provided an alternate meal. We do provide an alternate meal. The option 2 is that students who have charged the maximum amount and cannot pay out of pocket will be provided an alternate meal, which meets the requirements for reimbursement. And then alternate meals shall be provided for breakfast and or lunches and or afternoon snacks. This meal shall be provided at no cost or a cost of blank, which shall be charged to the student's account. Are we doing those meals at no cost?
If they're in the negative,
Yeah.
there's no charge.
Those,
They're no charge.
we've been doing them at no cost.
She has maybe on a handful of times ever done that for a few kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't come up very often. Thoughts on that?
I think we should just continue what
Okay. Okay, the next one, the next page, page 2 at the top, option 1, the district will make a reasonable effort to notify families when meal accounts reaches balances of, I'd recommend $10. That's kind of where we are. We talked about that. That's kind of what we're doing right now. $10 is when we start. Well, actually, we start as soon as they go negative, but especially if they hit $10. The 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth paragraph down there, that's another option we could. Now, we'll just select option 1. Never mind. Okay, moving on. Okay, 8250. This is policy on guidelines for food and beverage sales. This is policy related to guidelines for outside food and beverage sales, including vending machines, baked food sales, etc. We follow this policy already. No changes recommended on this one. There's a limit on how many things we can do, like during the school year, like baked food sales, things like that. I think 10 is the limit, so we're aware of that.
There is an optional deal on 8245 charitable assistance.
Oh, yeah, okay. The third page of 8245, yep, optional charitable assistance, the last paragraph. The district may establish an unpaid meal charges fund to cover the cost of unpaid meal charges. Charitable groups, individuals, school fundraisers, and others may donate to this fund. parents, guardians of children be paying full amount for school meals and who have funds left over in their school meals account at the end of the school year may be offered the option of donating these funds to the unpaid meal charges fund. If the district chooses to establish an unpaid meal charges fund, the superintendent or his or her designee shall establish procedures for the use of such funds. Thank you.
I wouldn't put it in policy. I mean, I like the idea, but I wouldn't have it in policy.
I have people now that if they know, hey, so-and-so might be struggling, they'll say, and it's either if it's staff or if it's a parent, or they've known in the past, they'll just put some money on their accounts, or they just put it to the food line, so then it looks like it's been donated to them.
You can do it without it being in policy, but
So strike it.
if it's in policy, it just means someone's got to maintain it.
Yeah, okay. Okay. 8250, this is policy related to guidelines for, I already did that one, no changes on that one. 8270, policy guiding incentives and food. Essentially, this policy is saying that food is not the best incentive in schools and in classrooms, and it gives other options as guidance. No changes recommended on this one. Okay, 8300, this is policy for emergency and disaster preparedness, and also the development of a crisis management plan. We have both of those things, and there's no changes recommended on this policy. 8300, okay, so there's a whole bunch of these, I believe. These are going to be procedures that go along with the emergency and disaster preparedness. Procedure 1 is no changes recommended on this one. This is guidance for our crisis plan. So we have a crisis plan. Our crisis committee is made up of staff from both schools and administrators and office staff, and we meet at the beginning of each school year to review it and to review goals in the event of a crisis. So these are procedures that are going to go along with that. No changes on 8300 P1. As you flip through that, you're going to see like the different roles that people have in a crisis management plan. P2 is correlates with emergency preparedness. No changes on this one. Explosion or fallen aircraft procedure. P3 is for a hazardous material spill. No changes. P4 is for a bomb threat. No changes. This is something that the secretaries keep by their desk to access. P5 is for violent or criminal behavior or a hostage situation. No changes on this one. P6 is for an earthquake. No changes on this one. P7 is for severe weather emergency, tornado or lightning procedure. Same thing, no changes on this one. P8 is for a natural gas leak. Same thing, no changes on this one. Again, this is just giving guidance in case any of these things come up. P9 is for a broken water main. No changes on this one. 8310 is policy on AEDs. Our AEDs are serviced annually. The last sentence of the first paragraph, therefore it is the policy of this district that the implementation and use of AEDs is authorized in the buildings of the district in accordance with Idaho Code 5337. No changes on this one. 8320 is policy for fire drills and evacuation plans. No changes on this one. We complete both of these at the buildings. And that lockdown drill is generally done pretty early on in the school year.
Does somebody get to get certified in that AEDs every so often?
You know, we have staff members. Well, we've done some work with them when we do the training for like the coaches and the administrators and athletic director and stuff, because the first aid CPR stuff, we've included that. So we always do have staff members that are trained. Yeah. to say, I don't know if it's required though, to be honest.
I don't know if it's required either. I know we always do it with our first aid CPR.
Yeah.
And it says on our cards, AED certified.
Oh, does it?
Pretty sure it
Mm,
says.
yeah.
But I don't know if it's.
Mhm.
Yeah, first aid CPR AED.
Hmm, yeah. Yeah, that's where we included it too the last time we did it. Okay, 8320 is policy for fire drills and evacuation plans. Like I said, no changes there. 8320P is the procedure for the previous policy. No changes. 8500. This is risk management. We have multi-lines insurance policy. So if you look at our district's insurance policy, we are covered in all sorts of different scenarios. And that is through Morton, right? Yeah. So the underwriters on this policy are Idaho County's risk management program. 8510 is policy on district safety. The board recognizes that safety and health standards should be incorporated into all aspects of the operation of the district. Things like OSHA requirements, and injuries and accidents shall be reported to the district office. No changes on this one. 8520 is policy related to the inspection of the school facilities. This has to happen at least once a year. The safety inspection report will be provided to the board of trustees. So we have a inspection annually, and right now I can't remember what month we generally do that. Yeah, I want to say it's in the fall, but so it's been the same gentleman every year since I've been here. No changes on this policy. He reviews a lot of the things that we've been talking about in the last few policies, like fire drills, evacuations, things like that. He reviews our logs to make sure that it's happening. 8530 is policy on damage and insurance. The district shall maintain a comprehensive insurance program, which shall provide adequate coverage as determined by the board in the event of loss or damage to school building. So we have that, obviously. There's no changes required from this policy. 8600 is policy on records management. The fireproof, waterproof vault will be provided for the retention of public records, included but not limited to minutes, annual audit reports, and for employment and student records. The clerk and others designated by the superintendent shall be the public records custodians under the supervision of the superintendent, and the one or more positions shall be alternate custodians of record. So that second paragraph, I think maybe if we just have like the backup person to the clerk be the business manager, because the other person working with the records probably the most. No changes on this one. This is in accordance with our policy 4260. 8605 is retention of district records. So this is the document that Amy has been looking at for the last month, every day, as she goes through stuff out in the hall. The last paragraph on the first page, we do need an amendment there. The district will store electronic emails for a maximum period of blank. Dan recommended 7 years on that.
The feds usually are between 7 and 10, depending on what department you're in.
7 years sound good? Okay. Okay, we're getting on this, Nelson, we're getting there. 8610, this is policy indicating the district must abide by HIPAA and FERPA requirements. No changes recommended for this. 8700, this is policy on computer software. The unauthorized copying of any computer software which is licensed or protected by copyright is theft. Failure to observe software copyrights and or license agreements may result in disciplinary action by the district and/or legal action by the copyright owner. No district-owned computing resources should be used for unauthorized commercial purposes. No changes recommended on this one. 8800, this is policy on drones. Last one, we need to pick an alternative. We have alternative 1 and alternative 2. So the first paragraph and 1, 2, 3 right below it in the second paragraph, that's part of the main policy. And then below that, so the second half of the first page and the last half of the third page, those are our two options to include on that. Alternative 2 is certainly simpler, as you can see. Ultimately, both of them say that drones basically must be approved beforehand, and then it looks at like the reasons. Either way, they have to be approved. This just gives more guidance. Alternative 1. I generally go for the simpler version.
Maybe anybody here have time for a question?
We've got one here, we have one at the elementary. And one of the avenues I'm exploring is possibility of beginning a drone pilots program for the high school students, so they could be a certified drone pilot. So that's.
You still have that. You still have that drone, right?
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
one here and here.
Was it Eric? Was it you that had one for about a day? Before
No, that was LeBlanc.
you gave it to him.
You know what
He
happened?
lost in the crib.
Yeah.
Morgan dumped it in the crib.
Not certified.
Not certified.
He needs to go through your training.
Yeah.
And that was it for the 8,000 series.
So is there any input for future agenda item? Anything else before we adjourn? We'll have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
We move to second that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.
He's still-
What?